Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in her office aboard the diplomatic station orbiting Proxima Centauri. The morning had started like any other, with routine reports and trade agreements waiting for her review. She was Earth's chief representative to the Galactic Council, a position that required endless patience and careful words. The coffee maker hummed softly in the corner, filling the room with a familiar smell that reminded her of home. Then the emergency alert sounded. The wall screen flickered to life without her command. The Galactic Broadcasting Network logo appeared, followed by words that made her blood freeze. Live Broadcast Xerian Empire Justice Enforcement. Elena's hands trembled as she reached for her communication device. Something was very wrong. The Xerian Empire never broadcast their military actions. They preferred to work in shadows, making entire species disappear without explanation. The screen showed a barren planet surface under a red sky. Thousands of people stood in neat rows, their hands bound behind their backs. Elena recognized the faces immediately. They were human. Men, women, children, and elderly people all stood together in the dusty ground. Their clothes were torn and dirty, but she could see the blue and white patches of the New Eden colony. "No," Elena whispered. "Please no." A massive Xerian battleship hovered above the crowd. Its dark metal hull blocked out much of the red sun, casting long shadows across the execution ground. Smaller ships flew in circles around the area, their cameras recording everything for the galaxy to see. Supreme Commander Thaxmore appeared on screen. His reptilian features were twisted into what Elena had learned was a Xerion smile. It was not a pleasant sight. His scales were dark green, almost black, and his yellow eyes seemed to glow with cruel satisfaction. "Citizens of the galaxy," Thaxmore spoke in his deep, rasping voice. "Today you witnessed the price of defiance. These humans dared to cross into sacred Xerion space. They claimed to flee from a solar flare, but we know the truth. They came to steal our resources and corrupt our pure worlds." Elena knew this was a lie. She had the official reports from New Eden. The solar flare had been massive, forcing the colonists to evacuate their planet in old transport ships. They had sent distress signals to everyone, including the Xerians, asking for safe passage through their territory. The Xerians had captured them at the border and held them for 3 months. "The sentence for territorial violation is death," Thaxmore continued. "Let this serve as a lesson to all lesser species. The Xerian Empire tolerates no trespass, no matter how small." Elena watched in horror as Xerion soldiers took positions around the crowd. Their weapons were already powered up, glowing with deadly energy. The humans below seemed to know what was coming. Some were crying, others prayed, and many held their children close. An elderly man stepped forward from the crowd. Elena recognized him as Dr. Marcus Webb, the colony's leader. He was a good man who had spent his life helping others. His voice carried across the barren ground as he spoke. "We are innocent people," Dr. Webb said, his voice steady despite his fear. "We meant no harm to anyone. We only wanted to save our families from the solar flare. Please, if you must kill someone, take me and let the others go." Thaxmore laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your nobility is amusing, old human. But the sentence applies to all. Your species must learn that we show no mercy to trespassers." Elena tried to turn off the screen, but her hands would not obey. She had to watch. Someone had to witness this crime. Someone had to remember. The first shots rang out. The Xerion weapons made no sound in the thin atmosphere, but Elena could see the bright flashes of energy. The humans fell in waves, row after row, disappearing in moments. The children died alongside their parents. The elderly fell beside the young. No one was spared. Dr. Webb was among the last to fall. Even as the energy bolt struck him, he remained standing for a moment, looking up at the cameras with defiant eyes. Then he collapsed to the dusty ground, and the massacre was complete. 60,000 people, gone in less than 10 minutes. Thaxmore appeared on screen again, stepping over the bodies as if they were nothing more than broken furniture. This concludes today's justice enforcement. Remember, citizens of the galaxy, the Xerion Empire protects the natural order. Humans and other lesser species exist only by our permission. Cross us and you face the same fate. The broadcast ended. Elena's office fell silent except for the soft humming of the coffee maker. She stared at the blank screen, her mind struggling to process what she had just witnessed. 60,000 innocent people, murdered for the crime of trying to save their own lives. She reached for her communication device with shaking hands. This was bigger than anything she had faced before. The Xerions had just committed genocide in front of the entire galaxy. They had broadcast it like it was entertainment. "Get me the Galactic Council," she said to her assistant. "Emergency session, now." "Ambassador, what should I tell them the meeting is about?" Elena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them, they burned with determination. "Tell them we need to discuss mass murder. Tell them the Xerion Empire has just shown the galaxy their true face. And tell them that Earth demands justice." As she waited for the connection, Elena thought about the faces she had seen in the broadcast, Dr. Webb and his quiet courage. The mothers holding their children, the young people who would never get the chance to grow up. They deserve better than this. They deserve justice. But Elena knew the Galactic Council well. Most species were terrified of the Xerion Empire. They had military technology that could destroy entire star systems. They controlled trade routes and commanded fear wherever they went. Getting justice for the massacre would be the hardest fight of her career. Still, she had to try. Those 60,000 people were counting on her now. Earth was counting on her. Maybe the entire galaxy was counting on her, even if they didn't know it yet. The communication device buzzed. "Ambassador, I have the Galactic Council standing by." Elena straightened her shoulders and prepared to fight the biggest battle of her diplomatic career. The Xerions thought they could murder humans without consequences. They were about to learn that Earth did not forget its dead, and it never stopped fighting for justice. "Put them through," she said. "It's time to make some people very uncomfortable." The screen flickered to life, showing the faces of representatives from across the galaxy. Elena looked at each of them, wondering who would stand with humanity and who would turn away in fear. Either way, the fight for justice was about to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of Elena's request. Representatives from 47 different species appeared on the massive circular screen that dominated the council chamber. Each face showed a different emotion. Some looked concerned, others seemed bored, and a few appeared genuinely frightened. Elena stood at the central podium, her hands gripping the sides as she prepared to address the galaxy's most powerful political body. She had spent 3 hours reviewing the broadcast footage and preparing her statement. Every word had to be perfect. "Honored representatives," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. "Today we witnessed an act of unprecedented evil. The Xerion Empire has murdered 60,000 innocent civilians and broadcast their deaths across the galaxy. This was not war. This was not justice. This was cold-blooded genocide." She activated the holographic display showing key moments from the broadcast, the images of Dr. Webb's final stand, the children crying for their parents, the methodical execution of every single colonist. Several representatives looked away from the horrific scenes. Representative Zeph of the Altarian Federation, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid, spoke first. "Ambassador Vasquez, while these images are disturbing, we must remember that the humans were in Xerion space without permission. Every species knows the penalties for territorial violations." Elena felt her anger rise but kept her voice steady. "Representative Zeph, these people were refugees fleeing a natural disaster. They sent distress signals asking for safe passage. The Xerions captured them and held them for 3 months before this execution. Where is the justice in murdering children for their parents' desperate attempt to save them?" Before Zeph could respond, the chamber's main screen flickered. A new presence entered the virtual meeting. Supreme Commander Thaxmore materialized in the center of the room, his massive form dwarfing Elena's human figure. "Council members," Thaxmore spoke, his voice filling the chamber. "I am pleased to see that news of our justice enforcement has reached you so quickly. The Xerion Empire takes border security very seriously." Elena stepped forward, meeting the Xerion commander's gaze directly. "Commander Thaxmore, you stand accused of genocide. The murder of 60,000 innocent people is a crime against all civilized species." Thaxmore's laugh echoed through the chamber. "Genocide? These humans were trespassers and thieves. They entered sovereign Xerion territory with the intention of stealing our resources. We showed them the mercy of a quick death instead of slow torture. They were children," Elena shouted, her diplomatic composure finally cracking. "Babies, elderly people, families trying to survive a solar flare. How can you call that theft? All humans are the same," Thaxmore replied with cold certainty. "Greedy, violent, and untrustworthy. They multiply like insects and consume everything they touch. The galaxy is better without these particular insects." Representative Kelvar of the Crystalline Confederacy, whose species resembled living gemstones, spoke up hesitantly. Perhaps we should discuss sanctions against the Xerian Empire. Such extreme measures seem unnecessary. Thaxamor turned his yellow eyes toward Kelvar. Representative, I trust you remember what happened to the last species that attempted to sanction us. The Vorthek homeworld is now a beautiful asteroid field. Very artistic, really. Kelvar immediately fell silent. Elena realized with growing horror that most of the council was terrified of the Xerians. Decades of brutal enforcement had taught them that resistance meant extinction. The Xerian Empire demands no sanctions or interference, Thaxamor continued. In fact, we require the human government to issue a formal apology for this territorial violation and pay reparations of 1 billion galactic credits. They have 30 standard days to comply. Elena stared at him in disbelief. You murder our people and then demand that we apologize and pay you for the privilege? Precisely. And if Earth refuses, we will consider it an act of continued defiance. The consequences will be much more severe than the loss of a few thousand humans. The threat hung in the air like poison. Elena looked around the chamber, searching for support among the representatives. Most avoided her gaze. A few looked sympathetic but said nothing. Only Representative Yila of the Centauri moths, a species of gentle insectoids, dared to speak. Commander Thaxamor, surely there can be a more reasonable solution. Perhaps a formal hearing to examine the evidence. Thaxamor's scales darkened with anger. There will be no hearing. The humans are guilty. The sentence has been carried out. The matter is closed. The matter is not closed, Elena declared, her voice ringing with determination. Earth will never apologize for trying to save innocent lives. We will never pay blood money to murderers, and we will never accept that genocide is justice. Thaxamor moved closer to Elena's position, his massive form looming over her. Then Earth has chosen the path of defiance. In 30 days, your species will learn what happens to those who challenge Xerion authority. Is that a threat against Earth's entire population? Elena asked, making sure every word was recorded. It is a promise, Thaxamor replied.
Your world will serve as an example to other ambitious species.
Cross the Xerian Empire and face extinction. With that, Thaxamor's image disappeared from the chamber. Elena stood alone at the podium, surrounded by the virtual faces of representatives who were too frightened to help. Representative Zeph cleared his throat nervously. Ambassador Vasquez, perhaps your government should consider the Xerion demands. Surely the lives of your entire species are worth more than pride. Elena looked at him with disgust. Representative Zeph, pride has nothing to do with this. This is about right and wrong. This is about whether we live in a galaxy where bullies can murder children without consequences. But what can we do? Asked Representative Kelvar, his crystal form flickering with anxiety. The Xerians have the strongest military in the galaxy. They could destroy any of our worlds within days. So we do nothing? Elena demanded. We let them murder innocent people and threaten entire species. Where does it end? Today it's humans. Tomorrow it could be any of you. The chamber fell silent. Elena realized that fear had already won. These representatives had seen too many species disappear to risk their own survival. The Xerians had built their empire on terror and it was working perfectly. Representative Yila spoke quietly. Ambassador, some of us sympathize with your position, but we cannot openly challenge the Xerian Empire. It would mean the death of our people. Elena nodded slowly, understanding the impossible position they faced. I don't blame you for being afraid, she said. But fear cannot be the only law in this galaxy. Someone has to stand up to these murderers. And that someone is humanity? Zeph asked with obvious doubt. Elena straightened her shoulders and looked directly into the camera that would carry her words across the galaxy. Yes, humanity will stand against genocide. We will not bow to bullies, and we will show this galaxy that some things are worth fighting for no matter the odds. The emergency session ended with no resolutions, no sanctions, and no justice. Elena returned to her office feeling the weight of 60,000 deaths on her shoulders. In 30 days, Earth would face the most powerful military force in the galaxy. But as she looked out at the stars, Elena felt something growing inside her chest. It wasn't fear or despair. It was the same feeling that had driven humans to explore space, to build colonies among distant suns, and to never give up when the odds seemed impossible. It was hope. And for the first time since the broadcast, Elena smiled. The Xerians thought they knew humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. President Sarah Chen stood before the emergency session of the United Earth Assembly, her face grave but determined. The massive hall was packed with representatives from every nation, colony, and space station humanity had established. For the first time in decades, Earth was truly united. "My fellow humans," President Chen began, her voice carried to every corner of human space. 36 hours ago, we witnessed the most heinous crime in galactic history. 60,000 of our brothers and sisters were murdered in cold blood by the Zerion Empire. Today, those same murderers demand that we apologize and pay them for their crimes. A wave of angry voices swept through the assembly. Chen raised her hand for silence. "The Zerions believe that fear will make us kneel. They think that threats will force us to abandon our principles. They expect us to choose survival over justice." Chen's voice grew stronger with each word. "They are wrong." The assembly erupted in applause. Chen waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "Earth will not apologize for trying to save innocent lives. We will not pay blood money to genocidal tyrants, and we will not bow to those who believe that might makes right." In her apartment on Luna Station, Elena watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. She had spent the last day trying to build support among sympathetic council members. But the response had been disappointing. Most species were too terrified of Zerion retaliation to offer meaningful help. "Today I'm announcing the immediate mobilization of all Earth Defense Forces," President Chen continued. "Every ship, every weapon, every brave soul willing to stand against tyranny will be called to defend our homeworld." Admiral James Harrison, the head of Earth's space fleet, stepped forward to address the assembly. He was an old soldier with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "People of Earth," Admiral Harrison began, "I will not lie to you. The Zerion Empire has the largest and most advanced military force in the galaxy. Their ships outnumber ours 50 to 1. Their weapons are more powerful than anything we have ever faced." The assembly fell silent, hanging on his every word. "But they have never faced humanity in a fight for our very survival. They have never encountered the fury of a species that refuses to be exterminated. They think they know us, but they have only seen us as diplomats and traitors. They are about to meet us as warriors." Harrison activated a holographic display showing Earth's defensive preparations. Ships were moving into position around the solar system. Military bases were being reinforced on Mars, Europa, and the asteroid belt. But Elena noticed something else in the display. Construction projects that seemed far too advanced for human technology. "For the past 15 years, Harrison continued, "we have been preparing for this day, not because we wanted war, but because we knew that someday, someone would try to destroy us simply for existing. Project Prometheus has been developing new technologies based on recovered alien artifacts and our own innovations." The display showed sleek new warships unlike anything Elena had seen before. Their designs were distinctly human but incorporated advanced materials and weapon systems that seemed almost alien. These ships carry gravitational pulse cannons, quantum torpedo launchers, and shield systems that can withstand direct hits from Zerion battleships, Harrison explained. "We have also developed something the Zerions have never encountered: adaptive AI systems that can learn and counter enemy tactics in real time." President Chen returned to the podium. "But our greatest weapon is not technology. It is the human spirit. It is our refusal to accept injustice. It is our determination to protect the innocent, even when that protection seems impossible." Elena's communication device buzzed. A message from Representative Yila of the Centauri Moths appeared on her screen. "Ambassador, several smaller species have been meeting in secret. We cannot openly oppose the Zerions, but we can provide intelligence and supplies. Humanity is not as alone as it appears." Elena felt a surge of hope. While the major powers cowered before Zerion might, the smaller species remembered what it was like to be helpless. They understood that today's victim could be tomorrow's executioner. Back on Earth, President Chen was outlining humanity's strategy. "We will not simply wait for the Zerions to attack. We will use these 30 days to prepare, to fortify, and to show the galaxy that some species cannot be intimidated." Dr. Rebecca Walsh, Earth's chief scientist, joined the president on the stage. She was young for such an important position, but her work on alien technology had advanced human capabilities by decades. "The Zerions believe that technological superiority guarantees victory," Dr. Walsh said, "but they have grown lazy and overconfident. Their tactics have not changed in centuries because no one has ever forced them to adapt. We will use their arrogance against them. She activated another display showing Xerion military patterns. Every battle they have fought follows the same basic strategy. Overwhelming force applied directly to enemy positions. They have never faced an opponent that could force them to think tactically. Elena realized what humanity was planning. They were not going to meet the Xerions in a traditional battle. They were going to force them into the kind of war humans had been fighting for thousands of years. A war where intelligence, creativity, and determination mattered more than raw power. President Chen addressed the assembly one final time. In 30 days, the Xerion Empire will come to Earth expecting to find a cowering species ready to beg for mercy. Instead, they will find humanity at its finest. They will discover that we are not victims. We are not prey. We are the descendants of warriors who fought with sticks and stones and conquered an entire world. The president's voice rose to fill the entire hall. They will learn that humans do not break. We do not surrender. And we do not forget our dead. The assembly erupted in thunderous applause. Elena wiped tears from her eyes as she watched representatives from every corner of human space stand and cheer. For the first time since the massacre, she felt something other than grief and anger. She felt pride. Over the next few days, Elena worked frantically to coordinate support from sympathetic species. The Centauri moths provided detailed intelligence about Xerion ship movements. The Silicon Collective offered advanced computer components. The Felinoid Republic shared information about Xerion tactical patterns from previous conquests. It was not enough to win a war, but it was enough to show that the galaxy was not entirely united behind Xerion tyranny. Some species still remembered what justice meant. Meanwhile, Earth's preparations continued around the clock. Asteroid mining operations were converted to weapons production. Scientific research stations became tactical planning centers. Every human settlement in space was transformed into a fortress. But the most important change was in the people themselves. Elena watched news reports showing volunteer training centers overflowing with applicants. Retired military personnel came out of retirement to serve their species one more time. Scientists worked without sleep to develop new weapons and defenses. Artists and writers created propaganda that reminded everyone what they were fighting for. The most powerful piece was a simple video, showing images of the new Eden colonists alongside their names and ages. 60,000 faces, 60,000 stories, 60,000 reasons to fight. The video ended with Dr. Webb's final words. We are innocent people. Elena knew that Earth's chances of victory were slim. The Xerions had conquered dozens of species with more advanced technology and larger populations. But she also knew that they had never faced anything like humanity's response to genocide. The Xerions had expected fear and submission. Instead, they were getting defiance and determination. They had wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, humanity was about to make an example of them. As Elena prepared for another day of diplomatic efforts, she thought about the faces from the broadcast. Dr. Webb and his quiet courage. The children who would never grow up. The families destroyed by Xerion cruelty. They deserved justice, and in 30 days they were going to get it. 28 days had passed since the Xerion ultimatum. Elena stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time the atmosphere was different. News of Earth's military preparations had spread throughout the galaxy, and for the first time in decades, someone was openly preparing to fight the Xerion Empire. Honored representatives, Elena began, I stand before you today not to beg for help, but to share crucial intelligence that affects every species in this chamber. She activated the holographic display, showing intercepted Xerion communications that her new allies had helped decode. The messages appeared in glowing text above the council chamber. These are genuine Xerion military communications from the past month, Elena announced. I want you to listen carefully to what they reveal about Xerion intentions. The first message appeared. Operation Human Extinction proceeds as planned. Regardless of their response to ultimatum, full sterilization of Earth system authorized. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Elena continued to display more messages. Secondary targets confirmed. Centauri moths, Silicon Collective, Felinoid Republic. Evidence suggests growing resistance alliance. Long-term goal. Replacement of council system with direct Xerion governorship of all inhabited systems. Memo to all commanders. No survivors policy extends to any species providing aid to humans. Elena watched as the representatives read the messages with growing horror. The Xerions had not been content with murdering 60,000 colonists. They had been planning a complete reorganization of galactic power, with themselves as the only authority. Representative Zeph of the Altarian Federation spoke first, his blue skin pale with shock. "These messages, are they genuine?" "Verified through multiple intelligence sources," Elena replied. "The Xerions never intended to stop with humanity. We were just the first test case. They wanted to see if the galaxy would tolerate genocide. When no one stopped them, they planned to expand their program." Representative Kelvar's crystal form flickered rapidly with agitation. "They planned to eliminate the Council entirely?" Elena nodded grimly. "According to their communications, the Galactic Council is seen as an obstacle to Xerion expansion. They believe that fear alone should govern galactic relations." Supreme Commander Thaxmore's image suddenly materialized in the center of the chamber, his massive form radiating anger. "How dare you spy on Xerion military communications? This is an act of war." Elena turned to face him calmly. "Commander, you murdered 60,000 innocent people and broadcast it across the galaxy. You threatened to destroy Earth unless we apologized for your crimes. Exactly when did you think we were not at war? Those communications are classified military documents," Thaxmore snarled. "Accessing them is a violation of galactic law." "So is genocide," Elena replied. "But that did not stop you from murdering children and broadcasting their deaths for entertainment." Thaxmore's scales darkened with rage. "Your species has 2 days remaining. Surrender now, and we will allow some humans to survive as laborers in our mining operations." Elena straightened her shoulders and looked directly into his yellow eyes. "Commander Thaxmore, on behalf of the human species and in memory of the 60,000 innocent people you murdered, I have a message for you." The chamber fell completely silent. Elena's voice rang clear and strong. "Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not kneel. And humanity does not forget its dead. In 2 days you will come to Earth expecting to find victims. Instead, you will find warriors. You will discover that humans are not prey to be hunted. We are apex predators that you have foolishly awakened." Thaxmore laughed, but it sounded forced. Brave words from a species that barely understands gravity manipulation. "Your primitive weapons will not save you. Our weapons are not primitive," Elena said with a cold smile. "And they are not our greatest strength. Our greatest strength is something you have never possessed and never understood. It is the ability to inspire others to stand against tyranny." She turned to address the full council. "Representatives, you have seen the evidence. The Xerions plan to eliminate anyone who opposes their total domination. Today they demand we bow to genocide. Tomorrow they will demand you bow to slavery." Representative Yila of the Centauri Moth spoke up, her insectoid voice trembling with emotion. "The Moths have decided to officially support Earth's resistance. We cannot stand by while innocents are murdered." Representative Vox of the Silicon Collective added his electronic voice to the declaration. "The collective condemns Xerion genocide and offers full technological support to Earth Defense Forces." One by one, smaller species began to declare their support for humanity. The Felinoid Republic, the Aquatic Consortium, the Voidwalkers, and others stepped forward to join the resistance. Thaxmore watched this display with growing fury. "You fools. Do you think your pathetic alliance can stand against Xerion might? We will crush your worlds one by one. Then you will have to fight us all," Elena declared. "And you will discover that the galaxy contains more courage than you ever imagined." Representative Zeph looked nervously between the growing alliance and Thaxmore's threatening presence. "Perhaps there can still be a peaceful solution. Surely the Empire does not want to fight the entire galaxy." Thaxmore turned his attention to Zeph with predatory interest. "The Altarian Federation will be wise to remain neutral in this conflict. Those who stand with the humans will share their fate." Elena saw the fear return to Zeph's eyes, but she also saw something else. Doubt. For the first time, a major power was questioning whether the Xerions were truly invincible. "The choice is before you," Elena said, addressing the entire council. "You can live on your knees, hoping that the Xerions will be satisfied with only some genocide, only some slavery, only some oppression. Or you can stand with us and fight for a galaxy where justice means more than fear." Thaxmore's image began to flicker as he prepared to disconnect. "In 2 days, the human homeworld will be reduced to radioactive dust.
Any species that aids them will suffer the same fate.
This is your final warning. Before he could disconnect, Elena spoke one last time. Commander, you made one critical mistake. You assumed that because we are smaller, we are weaker. You assumed that because we are newer to space, we are inferior. You assumed that because we value peace, we cannot wage war. Thaxmore paused, his yellow eyes fixed on Elena. You are about to learn how wrong you are, Elena continued. Humanity has been fighting for survival since we lived in caves. We have faced extinction more times than your species has drawn breath. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed most civilizations. Elena's voice grew stronger with each word. You think you are showing us something new by threatening our extinction? But Commander, we have been preparing for this fight since we first looked up at the stars and decided that nothing would stop us from reaching them. The council chamber had never been so quiet. Even Thaxmore seemed struck by the intensity of Elena's words. In 2 days you will arrive at Earth with the largest invasion fleet in galactic history, Elena concluded. You will come expecting to find a broken species begging for mercy. Instead, you will find humanity at its finest. You will discover what happens when you threaten the children of a species that refuses to die. Thaxmore's image disappeared without another word. Elena remained at the podium, looking at the faces of representatives from across the galaxy. Some showed fear, others determination, and a few showed something she had never seen before in galactic politics. Hope. Elena returned to her quarters and immediately contacted Earth. President Chen appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. How did the council respond? Chen asked. 15 species have officially joined our alliance, Elena reported. 3 major powers are wavering. The rest are too frightened to act, but they are no longer completely certain that the Xerians will win. Chen nodded. Our preparations are complete. The fleet is in position. Our new weapons are ready. Admiral Harrison believes we can give them a fight they will never forget. Elena looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, the largest invasion fleet in galactic history was moving toward Earth. In 2 days, humanity would face its greatest test. President, Elena said, tell Admiral Harrison something for me. Tell him that the galaxy is watching. Tell him that today, humanity represents more than just our species. We represent the idea that bullies can be defeated, that genocides can be prevented, and that justice is worth fighting for. Chen smiled for the first time in weeks. I will tell him. And Elena, come home. Your diplomatic work is done. It is time for you to see what humans can accomplish when they fight for something bigger than themselves. Elena nodded and began preparations for her return to Earth. The talking was over. The time for action had come. Elena stood on the bridge of the EDS Prometheus, flagship of Earth's defense fleet. Through the massive view screen, she could see the Xerion armada approaching the outer edge of the solar system. 2,000 massive warships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls blocking out entire sections of stars. Admiral Harrison stood beside her, his weathered face calm despite the overwhelming odds. They are exactly where we expected them to be, he said quietly. Right on schedule. Elena had returned to Earth just in time to witness humanity's finest hour. The past 2 days had been a whirlwind of final preparations, last-minute intelligence updates, and coordination with their allied species. Now the moment of truth had arrived. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we are receiving a transmission from the Xerion flagship. Put it through, Harrison ordered. Supreme Commander Thaxmore's massive form filled the view screen. Behind him, Elena could see the bridge of his command ship, filled with reptilian officers preparing for what they expected to be an easy slaughter. Primitive humans, Thaxmore began, his voice dripping with contempt. I offer you one final chance to surrender. Submit to Xerion authority, and we will allow 10% of your population to survive as slave laborers. Admiral Harrison stepped forward, his expression stone cold. Commander Thaxmore, I am Admiral James Harrison of the Earth Defense Forces. I have a counteroffer for you. Thaxmore's yellow eyes narrowed with amusement. Speak, old human. Entertain me with your pathetic defiance. Leave our system immediately, Harrison said calmly. Return to your territory and never threaten innocent civilians again. Do this, and we will allow your fleet to depart unharmed. The Xerion commander threw back his massive head and laughed. You offer mercy to us? Your entire fleet has perhaps 100 ships. We have 2,000. Your weapons are primitive chemical rockets. Ours can shatter planets. Elena watched as Harrison smiled for the first time in days. Commander, you have made the same mistake that bullies always make. You have confused fear with respect, compliance with weakness, and silence with acceptance. Enough of this nonsense, Thaxmore snarled. Prepare to witness the destruction of your pathetic species. The transmission ended. Elena looked around the bridge at the human officers preparing for battle. Their faces showed determination, not fear. These were people fighting for their families, their children, and their very right to exist. All ships, this is Admiral Harrison, the Admiral announced over the fleet communication system. Remember what we are fighting for today. Remember the 60,000 innocent people murdered by these cowards. Remember that the galaxy is watching to see if justice still has meaning. Elena watched as the Earth fleet moved into position. The human ships were smaller than the Xerion vessels, but they moved with precision and purpose. Each captain knew their role in the complex battle plan that had been developed over the past month. Contact our allies, Harrison ordered. It is time. Suddenly, space around the Xerion fleet erupted with new contacts. Ships from 15 different species materialized from behind asteroids, moons, and space stations where they had been hiding. The Centauri Moth's bioships emerged from Jupiter's atmosphere. The Silicon Collective's geometric vessels rose from the asteroid belt. The Felinoid Republic's swift fighters appeared from behind Mars. Thaxmore's voice crackled over all communication frequencies. Impossible. Our sensors detected no Allied fleet movements. Admiral Harrison's response was broadcast to every ship in the system. That is because you never learned the difference between technology and intelligence. We used your arrogance against you. The battle began with the Xerians firing their massive planet cracker cannons. The beams of energy that could destroy entire worlds lanced through space toward Earth's fleet. But the human ships did not meet them head-on. Instead, they scattered in seemingly random directions, using the gravitational fields of planets and moons to alter their courses unpredictably. Elena watched in amazement as the Xerion weapons missed their targets by thousands of kilometers. The enemy had never faced opponents who used physics as a weapon. Now, Harrison ordered, the human ships revealed their secret. Instead of traditional weapons, they carried gravitational pulse cannons that could create temporary black holes. Quantum torpedo launchers that fired weapons existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And, most importantly, AI systems that could learn and adapt faster than any biological mind. The first wave of human attacks struck the Xerion fleet with devastating effect. Ships that had seemed invulnerable began to buckle and crack under gravitational forces they had never encountered. The perfect formation that had intimidated thousands of species became a liability, as damaged ships collided with their neighbors. Status report, Thaxmore demanded from his flagship. Sir, we have lost 47 ships in the first exchange. Their weapons are completely unknown to our databases. Elena smiled as she listened to the Xerion communications that their allies were intercepting and sharing. The supreme confidence was beginning to crack, but the Xerions were not finished. They adapted quickly, spreading their formation and focusing their fire on individual human ships. The EDS Courage exploded under concentrated fire. The EDS Freedom broke apart as Xerion fighters swarmed over it. We are losing ships, the tactical officer reported. The enemy is learning our patterns. Then we changed the pattern, Harrison replied. Phase 2. All Allied forces commence coordinated assault. What happened next had never been seen in galactic warfare. 15 different species, each with their own fighting styles and technologies, began to work together as a single force. The Centauri Moth's bioships released swarms of living fighters that could repair themselves. The Silicon Collective's vessels linked together to create massive computing networks that overwhelmed Xerion targeting systems. The Felinoid ships moved with impossible grace, striking and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Elena realized that this was more than a battle. It was a demonstration that cooperation could defeat tyranny, that justice could triumph over fear, and that the galaxy's diverse species were stronger together than any single empire could be alone. The Xerion fleet, which had never lost a major battle, began to retreat toward the outer system, but Admiral Harrison was not finished. Pursue them, he ordered. Today we end their reign of terror forever. The combined fleet chased the Xerions beyond Pluto, engaging them in running battles that lasted for hours. One by one, the mighty Xerion warships were destroyed or disabled. Supreme Commander Thaxmore's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, found itself surrounded and alone. "Surrender, Commander," Harrison broadcast to the crippled vessel. "Your reign of terror is over." Thaxmore's response came as a snarl of rage. "The Xerian Empire will never surrender to inferior species. We will fight to the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath." "No," Elena said, stepping forward to the communication console. "You will surrender, and you will face justice for your crimes." "I do not negotiate with prey animals," Thaxmore spat. Elena's voice carried across space to every ship in both fleets. "Commander, you are no longer a predator. You are no longer a conqueror. You are a war criminal who will answer for the murder of 60,000 innocent people." The combined fleet moved in closer, weapons trained on the Xerian flagship. Elena continued speaking, her words broadcast across the galaxy. "Today, the galaxy has learned that genocide will not be tolerated, that bullies can be defeated, that justice is not dead." Her voice grew stronger. "Today, we have shown that the universe belongs to all of us, not just those with the biggest weapons." The Xerian flagship's weapons powered down. Thaxmore's voice came through the communication system, filled with defeat and rage. "We surrender." 3 months later, Elena stood once again before the Galactic Council. But this time everything was different. The chamber had been rebuilt to accommodate representatives from over 100 species, including many that had been too frightened to participate before the Battle of Sol. At the center of the chamber sat a specially constructed prisoner dock. Supreme Commander Thaxmore and his surviving officers were on trial for crimes against galactic civilization. "The evidence is overwhelming," Elena announced as she presented the prosecution's case. "The defendants systematically murdered 60,000 innocent civilians and broadcast their deaths as entertainment. They planned the complete elimination of multiple species and the destruction of the Galactic Council itself. The trial had lasted weeks, with survivors from dozens of Xerion attacks testifying about atrocities committed across the galaxy. The full scope of Xerion crimes was finally being revealed. Representative Zeph, who now served as the tribunal's chief judge, read the verdict. "Supreme Commander Thaxmore, you are found guilty of genocide, crimes against galactic peace, and conspiracy to commit the elimination of multiple species." Elena watched as the Xerion commander was led away to face life imprisonment on a secure prison world. It was not enough to bring back the dead, but it was justice. After the trial, Elena was approached by President Chen and Admiral Harrison. "Elena," the president said, "the Galactic Council has offered you the position of Secretary General. You would be the first human to hold the office." Elena looked around the rebuilt chamber,